So welcome everybody to the July 30th, 2025 meeting of the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. Before I begin, I have a few notes for participating in the meeting. We ask that attendees remain muted unless speaking, and to first begin by clearly identifying yourself. All approval votes will be by roll call tonight, which will be administered when the time comes. And I'll begin by taking a roll call to trustees. Trustee Agudelo here. Trustee Brooks.
Here.
Trustee Hampton Dance.
Here.
Trustee Kafour. Trustee Newton.
Here.
Trustee Pincombe.
Here.
Trustee Rodriguez. Trustee Valdez.
Here.
And with that, we'll move to our first item, approval of the minutes from the June 11th, 2025 meeting. The draft minutes were emailed to all of you. Are there any corrections in the minutes as distributed? If there are no corrections, I'll request a motion to approve the minutes of the June 11th, 2025 meeting.
I motion to approve the minutes from June 11th, 2025.
And on that motion, I'll take a roll call. Trustee Agudelo, yes. Trustee Brooks.
Yes.
Trustee Hampton Dance.
Yes.
Trustee Kafour. Trustee Newton.
Yes.
Trustee Pincombe.
Yes.
Trustee Rodriguez. Trustee Valdez.
Yes.
And we'll move on to our next item, discussion and possible approval of the Affordable Housing Development Community Preservation Act funding, request for proposal. And with that, the chair recognizes Ms. Tozer to give the board a brief overview of the RFP.
Thank you. So I'm going to share the RFP. Give me one moment to do so. Okay, so everybody should be seeing PDF. Is that legible for everyone? If you're not on a phone, I suppose.
Works for me.
I got it. Okay. Okay, so I'm looking forward to briefly walking you through the draft request for proposals for affordable housing development, which was emailed out to the board last week. So our goal, as you're very well aware, is to support the creation of new affordable deed-restricted housing that reflects the values and priorities that the board has set, particularly around accessibility and long-term affordability. That was reflected in the strategic plan that was recently adopted, and this draft RFP should reflect that as well. So walk you through the key elements of the RFP, then we'll open it up for discussion. If you have any questions or comments or changes, welcome all feedback. So this RFP is the Trust's first really competitive funding round using the Community Preservation Act funds that were recently allocated to the Trust. A lot of it is very similar to the first RFP that the Trust Fund released, which used ARPA funding. It does not have some of the federal requirements, so just having projects located in qualified census tracts that determined what levels of income could be supported. So those types of requirements are not included in this, but a lot of the same kind of priorities are reflected in this from that first one. So it's seeking to support new affordable housing production, both homeownership and rental, for households earning up to 80% of area median income, with priority for deeper affordability at 30 and 60% area median income. And then also, what does set it apart a little bit from the first RFP is that it emphasizes projects that are shovel ready. But similarly, it does prioritize accessible housing and leveraging of other funding sources. So in terms of total funding, there is $1.25 million in the CPA funds, and the City Council approved that on July 15th, and a contract will be executed between the Community Preservation Committee and the Trust Fund. So the amount of funding is a lot less, but we're still proposing the same funding limits. So up to $150,000 per affordable unit and no more than 25% of the total development cost. Then you'll see that there are two application tiers proposed. And this is in part to allow for the prioritization of shovel-ready projects. And that stems from the Community Preservation Committee's expectations for their funding. This is our first time using their dollars, and they want to see it get allocated and used sooner than later. So we are proposing tier 1 for more shovel-ready projects, and that would be, we can update these. So proposed deadlines were identified when we're going to meet a week earlier, so we can move these around a bit and give applicants more time to put together their applications. But either way, the tier 1 shovel ready, that is for projects that have site control, either have their land use approvals or are very close to it, and have a financing timeline that allows them to close within 6 months, ideally sooner, but that's kind of the cutoff point that we've identified for that tier 1. And then tier 2 projects that aren't quite as shovel ready, so it's a little bit more flexible for projects that are still in the pre-development stage, but they still do have to show feasibility. And then I really just want to emphasize the timeline in here. It's part of the discussion that we have because with 2 deadlines, that means multiple board meetings because if we follow the same format as before, typically we're going to have applicants come and present at a meeting, and then at a subsequent meeting, the board will vote to award funding. So if we follow that, there would be, following the first deadline, we'd have a meeting where those shovel-ready applicants present, then we meet again for the potential awards to be made. Then we'd have the second deadline, and that would also trigger, 2 more meetings. So just want to be cognizant of your time while we're discussing this. So in terms of eligibility, same type of applicants will be eligible: nonprofit and for-profit developers, CDCs, and the Worcester Housing Authority. And the projects have to create new affordable units, either through new construction or substantial rehab. Again, maintain affordability for at least 30 years, meet accessibility minimums, so at least 10% of the units or minimum of 1 must be fully accessible, and all of the common areas need to be accessible. Again, they need to demonstrate financial feasibility in their application and have site control. And then this RFP makes it very clear that the affordable units have to be eligible for inclusion on the subsidized housing inventory, which is, there are certain state requirements that have to be met. And I also want to highlight that homeownership project eligibility requirements are also the same. I know the first RFP, the board had made some amendments to the RFP to reflect that the first-time home buyer has to have completed a homeownership course within 1 year of purchasing the property, and that the property must remain their primary residence for a period of no less than 10 years. So that those requirements carried over. So getting to funding priorities. These, again, mirror the recently adopted strategic plan. So the funding priorities in this RFP, which we can discuss, providing units at or below 60% or 30% AMI, so getting at that deeper affordability. The longer the affordable restriction, the better, so minimum of 30 years, but if they're willing to do it in perpetuity, they'll get, higher scores. Incorporating universal design and exceeding that minimum accessibility requirement. Projects that use infill development or adaptive reuse, so more sustainable approaches to development. If the project is located in a transit accessible location or it's located near jobs, schools, and other services. And then projects that demonstrate sustainability and resilience. And then use of funds. Again, very similar to the first RFP. This time, the additional consideration of that the uses have to meet the Community Preservation Act eligibility doesn't really change anything. So it could be used by a developer for property acquisition costs, for site prep, for the actual construction, those hard costs, and pre-development soft costs are eligible. But it's very important. I get this question a lot from potential applicants. You cannot, costs that are incurred before an agreement is executed with the city and with the trust fund, those costs are not eligible. So if you get that question, that's very important. And then in terms of scoring, the scoring criteria they're a little bit more streamlined from the last time, but I think this still reflects those priorities that the board has agreed to. So we do have, just briefly, the difference between the two tiers in terms of scoring really comes down to readiness to proceed and financial feasibility. We had to balance it out so they total 100 points maximum, but so tier 1, those shovel-ready projects, slightly higher points for that readiness to proceed than for tier 2. And to balance that out, there's a little bit less emphasis on financial feasibility for tier 2. And that really is made up by the fact that a project that is really ready to proceed has their finances in order. So that's how we're balancing that out there. And then submission requirements. This time around, there is an online submission via city form that I've worked out with our tech services folks. There's an optional hard copy submission, but this should make it a lot easier for applicants to submit their applications. And then in terms of the review process, again, internally, staff will review it for any applications for completeness before it is sent on to the board. Applicants may be asked to present to the board. We can discuss that. Then once the board discusses and makes awards, those funding decisions will be reflected in conditional commitments that are issued to applicants that are awarded funding. Importantly, and I think this was discussed during the strategic plan as well, strong but unfunded projects may reapply if more funds become available. And any non-competitive proposals, ones that don't meet the minimum requirements or scored really low, those projects will face a 1-year cooling off period before they can reapply to the trust. And then technical assistance. So I've scheduled 2 potential sessions for potential applicants. We'll give an overview of the application and provide or answer questions that they may have. So right now, depending on the deadlines that we agreed to tonight, we have an in-person one scheduled for August 27th and then a virtual one scheduled for September 3rd. And then lastly, just a couple overall notes. The application itself at the very end has a statement of applicant, and one of the new terms and conditions that was added is a note that any past building, sanitary, and fire code violations may be considered in evaluating applications. And then overall, this RFP, including the application form itself, which will be turned into a fillable PDF, it's 18 pages long versus the last one, which was 40 pages. So working on making this a more streamlined process for potential applicants. So with that, I'll turn it back over to the chair.
Thank you for going over that with us. And I'd like to open up the floor for any board discussion and questions.
Through the chair, yeah, just first of all, I want to thank Ms. Tozer. She spent a lot of time streamlining this application to really streamline it. We've heard that again and again from developers to make this as easy as possible and less time consuming. So she did a great job there. The other thing too, as she mentioned, the Community Preservation Committee also really stressed the emphasis on shovel-ready projects, moving these dollars as soon as possible. So that's why that shovel-ready category was put into the application there. So again, just want to thank Ms. Tozer for her efforts.
From my perspective, everything looks good. In terms of like the additional meeting times, that works with me, but I'm not sure if that's something that would be an issue or a challenge for anybody else that's on the line. But I've got no issue making the meeting. We can try to work with a timeline.
Yeah, the timeline works for me too, through the chair. If it's just sometimes life is lifing, but other than that, like following the format that we've been following for these past few years, you know, I feel like that works out well instead of like changing it. Like, let's do the presentation, do our scoring, come back and reconvene and vote.
Through the chair again. So I think we might want to define that 6-month period. Is it from their date of application or is it from the date of conditional commitment once the project's approved? So I think we would want to define that. In my point of view, it would be from the point at which the project's approved by the board, but up to the discussion. Any thoughts?
Through
To
the
the
chair.
chair.
Oh,
No, go ahead,
please go.
Janet. Go ahead.
No, please. Your
No,
input is more important.
I agree with Jim. I think it should be from the time that we approve the funding. Because like we're trying to streamline everything. So once we say yay or nay, then they can progress in their project, if that makes sense.
And if I may, through the chair, I agree because I think then we can specify in that conditional commitment letter. It'll be easier to do 6 months from that date.
Now, are there any other thoughts, questions, concerns? So hearing none, I move that the Affordable Housing Trust Fund Board of Trustees approve the Affordable Housing Development Request for Proposal application as amended. And on that motion, I'll take a roll call, or sorry, do I have a motion?
Second.
Just with that friendly amendment to the 6-month for the shovel ready would be at time of conditional commitment. Or board vote, I would say, board.
I second the motion as amended.
And on that motion, I'll take a roll call. Trustee Agudelo, yes. Trustee Brooks,
Yes.
Trustee Hampton Dance,
Yes.
Trustee Kafour, Trustee Newton,
Yes.
Trustee Pincombe,
Yes.
Trustee Rodriguez, Trustee Valdez.
Yes.
And I think I heard Vanetta, but on that, that motion passes. And we'll move forward to our next item. So we had a discussion item on the agenda for establishing a fundraising subcommittee as per the strategic plan that we just worked on. I think that this, and I can take this item, I think this would be a great step for us as a board to try and create another channel for raising funds and trying to advocate for the board, collect more money that we'd be able to in turn use for housing. I think that if we're able to do this successfully too, it can be something that could be very compelling to other grants or other boards that we're asking for funds from. But wanted to open up that item for discussion and see what folks' thoughts may be interested in participating with something like that on the board.
Through the chair, sign me up. I'm like ready to go. I love to fundraise. It's fun for me. And, getting the community involved in raising dollars to actually start providing funding to build more affordable housing. That's right up my alley.
So as far as parameters around it, I think that's something that, we will definitely want to work and use guidance from the city to help define what that's going to look like. But I think in terms of, moving forward the item, if there's no objection, if someone wants to make a motion, we can move forward with starting a fundraising subcommittee.
Well, I'll make the motion to move forward with starting to make a fundraising committee.
And do we have a second?
I second that motion.
Awesome. And on that motion, I'll take a roll call. Trustee Agudelo, yes. Trustee Brooks,
Yes.
trustee Hampton Dance,
Yes.
trustee Kafour,
Yes.
trustee Newton,
Yes.
trustee Pincombe,
Yes.
trustee Rodriguez, trustee Valdez.
Yes.
And on that, the motion passes and we will establish a fundraising subcommittee. Moving forward to our next item, updates and announcements, the chair recognizes Ms. Tozer to provide the update.
Sure. Thank you. So through the chair, you received the trust fund funded projects stats update document. So since our last meeting, some of the highlights, construction has commenced at the 116 Piedmont Street homeownership project that Worcester Common Ground is undertaking. And then a number of the other projects that are in construction, progress continues. And in terms of projects that are not at construction yet, the closing calls for Lakeside Phase 1 continue to make a lot of progress. The new anticipated closing date is September 9th. I do want to also note that Marquette Square, they closed their application window on July 18th. And I don't have the exact number, perhaps Trustee Brooks does, but I understand that they received over 1,000 applications for those 49 units. Did you want to add something?
No, so yeah, I don't have the exact number, but it was over 1,000 applications that qualified applications for those units. So just shows the demand.
And then I do, as you'll notice on that document, there are 3 funded projects that are still in the financing phase. The ARPA agreements that we have with those projects gives them until December 31st of this year to close. So we have stayed in close contact with them. One of the projects, LaGrange Lofts, the team has kept us in the loop regarding their conversations with the state. They are lined up to close in the 3rd quarter of this calendar year, but realistically, it'll be a 4th quarter. They recently got their tax credit letters in hand. So the financing on that does seem to be moving ahead to meet the timeline. Lakeside Phase 2, that's the homeownership component, that is also moving ahead. That is tied to Phase 1 because they're going to use the same contractor for cost savings. So that one also seems to be moving on a timeline that meets our requirements. Colony on Grove Phase 1, which is known as Apple, we're in contact with them regularly. Their second phase of the project, which is called Beach, was funded in EOHLC's 2025, that's the Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities, winter 2025 round. So that team is in contact with HLC as well as Mass Development. So I'll provide updates to the board on the progress with that, that closing for Phase 1. Again, just want to reiterate, so the ARPA agreements allow them until the end of this calendar year to close on financing. As we get closer to that, we can reassess where they're at. And then in terms of other updates, right now I have the next board meeting scheduled for August 20th. It's a Wednesday at 5:30 p.m. I encourage you to take a look at your calendars and follow up with me if you think that will not work for you. I just want to make sure that we have a strong showing like we do tonight. And with that, I'll turn it back over to the chair.
Thank you for that. And is there any questions, discussion from the board on the announcements?
You said August 20th, right? Just want to make sure I have that right for my calendar. Thank you.
And seeing no other questions, we'll move forward to our next item, financial status update. And with that, the chair once again recognizes Ms. Tozer.
Okay, this should be the last time you're going to hear me go on, but through the chair. So the board packet includes a financial summary. Do want to note that the latest ARPA interest accrual amount has not been transferred yet into the trust fund from the general ARPA fund that the city has. So that's likely because the fiscal year ended at the end of June, and we're in the new fiscal year. So that will be forthcoming. So I do anticipate having that updated number for the board at the next meeting. It does show that I will say actually that there are no additional payments have gone to the trust fund yet. So that the developer behind Arbella at Bramble Hill, the first payment has yet to be received, but I do anticipate that sometime soon. And then in terms of ARPA expenditures, the total, including requisitions that are currently in process, is a little under $6.5 million. And that's a brief overview of the financial summary.
Thank you. And are there any questions from the board on that item?
Yes, through the chair. With the $6 million, it looks like we have just about $12 million to expend in 18 months. Do we anticipate increasing the expenditure rate here coming up?
Yes, through the chair. So projects will continue to be making requests for funding, and I do anticipate those accelerating, especially for projects that are currently in construction. Once they reach the halfway point, they're able to submit larger requests too. So I do anticipate that the amounts increasing.
Any other questions, discussion? So hearing none, I'll move to our next item, potential future agenda items. Are there any agenda items that folks would like to cover on a future meeting?
I do have one. So I guess I'll pose it in the form of a question and then maybe it'll get an answer and then maybe it'll be on the agenda. So is there any way that we could work with or have discussions with the zoning board? Because I think that's who we would have to be talking to. I'm not sure, on expanding the qualified census tract so that, maybe more land or there's more coverage area than what we have. I feel like it's almost like a redlining thing that's happening right now where we can only build within this qualified census tract. And if we could expand that, maybe we'd be able to, get more builds happening.
So I could take this through the chair. So the qualified census tracts were only related to the ARPA funding, and it dictated where units had to meet certain or be deed restricted to certain income levels. Those are not relevant for the current funding round, and it's a federal requirement for the ARPA funding that is no longer relevant.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any other future agenda items folks would like to cover? So hearing none, I'll make a motion to adjourn the July 30th, 2025 Affordable Housing Trust Fund Board of Trustees meeting. Is there a motion? Second?
I'll second the motion.
And on that motion, I'll take a roll call. Trustee Agudelo, yes. Trustee Brooks,
Yes.
Trustee Hampton Dance,
Yes.
Trustee Kapoor,
Yes.
Trustee Newton,
Yes.
trustee Pincombe,
Yes.
trustee Rodriguez, trustee Valdez.
Yes.
And with that, we'll adjourn today's meeting. Thanks for joining, everybody.